Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with Chabad House of Delmar, and I have a very special guest with us, Isaac Singer. Welcome to the Jewish View.
Thank you.
Well, Isaac is an interesting story for me because we saw him grow up here in the city of Delmar just from very young, and he's advanced in his career and his college, and now he's moved to Israel to live there. So we wanted to talk to him, why he chose that path. Now, obviously, he can have with a good degree and went to Cornell, and he can make a good living, of course, beautiful in America, and decided to go, and not only in Israel, but he joined up to the army. So how in America, everybody runs away from the army, but here they go to the army. So tell us a little bit about yourself, your career and what you do in the army, or you're out of the army now?
Sure, yeah, I finished about 8 months ago.
All right, so very good.
So I arrived in Israel.
They used your engineering degree, or were you a foot soldier?
I can explain, sure. So I grew up right here in Delmar. I went to Cornell for university. I studied what's called operations research engineering. I decided at some point that I wanted to do something in line with my value system, and I realized I wanted to be in Israel and I wanted to serve the country. So shortly after graduating, I moved to Israel. I did a 2-year service, primarily in the Air Force.
You were enforced too, or it's volunteer?
So technically, because I made aliyah when I was 21, it was a required service. But of course, I chose to move there, so
yeah.
Voluntarily.
All right, excellent.
I joined. I had a 2-year IDF service. I was in what was called the Innovation Unit in the Air Force.
They saw you were an engineer.
They saw I was an engineer, which definitely got my foot in the door of that unit, which has existed in the past, but was basically starting from scratch when I got there. But the work that was being done wasn't really connected to engineering. It was more strategy and almost something along the lines of business development.
Now, because Israel's, one thing that they say is always on the cutting edge of technology, and it's really up there for such a small country. On top of everything, it's more advanced than your European nations, which are established and bigger. Can you tell us a little bit about what's up? Don't tell us the secrets, of course, but things that are going on in technology in Israel.
I think Israel is technologically advanced out of necessity, really. It's always been, on the brink of another conflict, unfortunately, and when push comes to shove, technology has given Israel the edge that it's needed to succeed through all of these conflicts. I think that a lot of times the way that Israelis develop technology and they think about technology is relatively short-sighted, in the sense that solutions are created to solve problems immediately, and long-term thinking isn't such an Israeli approach, understandably, because everything needs to be solved quickly, and if we don't have tomorrow, we can't think about next year. So that's very much the Israeli mentality, and I think that slowly but surely, as Israel is developing itself as a technological powerhouse in the world, with a little bit more room to grow and think longer term, some really exciting, bigger projects will come out of the country.
Well, I guess that they were more modern, because I'm just thinking about history. In the olden times, it's like, oh, we got 10,000 people, you have 1,000 soldiers, we're going to rush you, and more like the World War I kind of idea, and unfortunately a little bit of the Ukrainian-Russian mentality also. We're just going to rush soldiers, but that doesn't win wars nowadays, and therefore the technology is more important with drones and etc. Then you don't need people anymore. You just have one drone beat up the other drone over here. Pretty soon they won't even need people. Well, it's good, at least people aren't killed, but on the other hand, Israel, because of that, because they don't have the numbers. I remember, I go back a long while, 67 war, and I remember on the television, the Arab countries, Egypt, Jordan, Syria, ooh, look how many soldiers they have and how many tanks and planes they have, and look at Israel. And we were, oh man, are they going to lose? You know, I mean, we're going to do, you know, bigger than, stronger than Israel. But obviously we saw, well, again, we always say God's miracles, but on the other hand, you have to do what you got to do. And they did win. So again, that's, like some nations, they're not getting it. Like Russia, they're still in quagmire. Oh, we're going to rush 1 million soldiers and we're going to win the war. And with the technology today, we can just have drones just mowing them down.
Hopefully save a lot of lives.
Yeah, so it's interesting that Israel knows to, you know, Israel, I mean, of course, uses their brains. That's important, you know, and more of their brawn. Everybody always thought that the Israeli army, you know, was, but, you know, well, it came from the Holocaust. The Jews didn't fight back. Oh, the Jews are, you say in Yiddish for the viewers, nevishes, you know, like losers, you know, they can't beat up anybody. And then, you know, what kind of business over here, you know, that they're fighting and winning, you know, big giants.
Yeah, we've created a new identity as Jews.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing about Israelis, just in the last 100 years or so, really just since the founding of the state of Israel, the image of the Jew has really shifted, I think, in the world. And the Jew as the aggressor is relatively new as an identity.
Yeah, since Israel's there. But, you know, it's interesting because, like I said at the beginning, you're American, and Delmar's a beautiful suburb, and, you know, you go and there nowadays missiles are going on your head. I mean, and you'd rather go there, live there, than, and it's not so peaceful in America, I guess. There's always Michigoyim nuts with snipers. But on the other hand, we're relatively safe. Thank God we're in America. So why would you want to, what was your reasoning to live in Israel?
You know, I think it comes down to the way I was brought up. I had a very Zionist upbringing. My experience going to Camp Yavne, the way that my parents raised me, and I think largely being a Jewish kid in a non-Jewish suburb, while I didn't really experience any serious anti-Semitism, you know, it was always kind of strange to be Jewish, and my Judaism was not something I was necessarily proud of. And at some point in my life, as I reflected on, you know, what value I placed on Judaism and how significant that was to me and to my identity, I realized that I wanted to be prioritizing that and in a place where that was valued and recognized by the mainstream. So I think largely that's why I wanted to be in Israel. And the army was just kind of an extension of that, to give back to Israel and to provide value to the place where I wanted to be.
And use those skills from the army into your job now or your employment?
A bit, yeah. So I recently started, well, I can speak a little bit about what the job was like in the army, and then I can speak to this current job. But essentially the IDF in general is creating these innovation units across the different branches, essentially to promote change and establish new avenues for fast-paced projects. Typically, defense procurement cycles are very long and slow, and very costly. So instead of placing all money into these massive projects that may or may not succeed, the idea is these innovation branches can establish ways for small projects to almost function as trials, almost like prototypes, or you could consider them startups in and of themselves. Small projects to test out ideas before placing a lot of money on whatever technology or concept. So for the Air Force, we were building out this mechanism, essentially for Air Force soldiers to take ideas and turn them into projects. Again, very small, very fast-paced, just to try out different things and see if they could succeed. And then also to scout different small companies, startups in industry, and bring in their ideas as opposed to building everything in-house.
It's interesting. Well, you know, what I heard, and of course you can talk more about it, is that the airplanes, the jets, the fighter jets are American, and when they sell them or they give them to Israel, the Israelis like gut it, so to speak, and put in their own kind of instruments or whatever, their different technology, and make it even better.
Yeah.
So again, it's like taking one thing instead of reinventing the wheel, you would say, making a whole new jet, taking something there and twisting it and
Right.
making it a little bit better.
Right, sure. Yeah, I think a lot of times these Israeli Air Force specifically, I can speak to, is good at tailoring solutions to fit their needs specifically. And of course, the vast majority of Air Force equipment is from the U.S. But there are different things to enhance the training, to enhance the equipment itself. For example, one of the projects that we helped with was to help pilots train using VR, virtual reality glasses, so they could.
While not really flying, you mean?
While not really flying, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's of course simulators are nothing new, but to really have a more authentic experience in the training simulation seems to be very successful and give those pilots almost an experience of having flown in a certain region without ever having been there before and without ever having to risk their lives.
Yeah, well, save money also, jet fuel and just
Yeah.
flying around. I'm
Yeah.
sure it takes more instead of just sitting
Yeah, of course.
in a place over here. I know one person I know that he is retired, but he has money, and he has actually a 787 stimulator in his home. His own home and like that. And he says, well, that's what I like doing. I like fly to Europe, again, not really, but just things. But I guess it's nothing like the real thing, like I always say. You can practice. Sports are like that. You can practice and practice, but then you get to the major leagues, then they flop. Nothing like the real thing.
It is true, and I think that's important to remember as more money gets invested in these more advanced simulations. But even beyond pilots, even for ground soldiers, it seems like these training games or scenarios, which are becoming much more realistic, are able to better prepare these soldiers for the actual combat situation. So we'll see. I hope that there's cautious. I think that there's cautious optimism in the ability to train more precisely and at this high level, so that while we can still train, we can recognize that.
Yeah. Well, again, you'll need the real thing, but in the meantime, you're build them up to such an idea. So that's good. That's where technology takes off.
Yeah.
Do you know if like America ever comes and checks it out? And because I would think that the United States just allies himself with Israel, of course, and saying, hey, you guys have some good ideas.
Yeah.
Usually the United States, we're on top of everything, we're number one and all that, which I guess they are in one hand, but the technology, there's a lot of things to learn from Israel.
Yeah. A few times I saw different U.S. Air Force soldiers in the Air Force headquarters in Tel Aviv, learning and collaborating. There's also a military attaché based in Tel Aviv that we worked a little bit with, just to, again, build that connection, learn from the way that innovation is being done in the U.S. military, and learn from them, have them learn from us, and develop that relationship.
That's always good. I mean, obviously there are things you learn from the United States with all their military, especially now they're putting a lot of more money into the military, so we'll see what happens. That's why I say that Israel had the Iron Dome, but now that, Trump says, well, we're going to make a golden dome with dome. I'm just saying, they say that from Israel. Israel said it was good for Israel.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying, trying to, I don't know all the secrets behind what everybody's doing, of course, but, you hear about it, that the United States learns from Israel maybe learns from the United States, like I say, maybe they have things going on. Well, it's a little easier in Israel because they don't have to, no one's thinking about taking over Iran, so you can just, it's really a more defense
Yeah.
force, then America has to think, oh, what if we go to Venezuela? And what if we go into North Korea?
Right.
What are we going to do there? So you got to have submarines and all over the world.
Israel doesn't have that luxury, first of
Yeah.
all, and second of all, it's not really in the nature of Israel to be thinking outward. It's not really in the ethos of the Jewish land or the mission
Well, the
statement.
Rebbe, to bring in the Rebbe, of course, the Rebbe says it isn't exactly what you said. It shouldn't be in the offensive, but once it's defensive, which was the Six-Day War, Suez Canal, you can go back to that in '56, and the Six-Day War and the Yom Kippur, you gained the land, well, then it became yours. So it was always against giving up anything.
Interesting.
Which, of course, I think today you see the wisdom of the Rebbe, just give, and what do you get? You get spit in the face.
Yeah. It's a fine line between, recognizing our worth and standing up for ourselves, while understanding the political dynamics of the region and, not being too aggressive.
They say the soldiers win the war and the diplomats lose
Give
it
back.
over here. You give it back.
Yeah.
They have to fight for every inch, every yard. So with your new job, what do you have to deal with there? Kind of new things?
Yeah, so it's similar to what I was doing in the Air Force. It's an early stage defense investment group. Very early stage investments between $400,000 and $1 million about per company. And essentially, we're looking at primarily Israeli startups, but not exclusively, focused on solving problems in the world of defense. So anything from a smart border technology that could help alert or even track activity near a border and use that data collected to gain insights, to protecting a group of soldiers on the move from oncoming drones or other threats, anticipating and then defending them before they need to themselves. So it could really be anything. It's exciting to see the space right now because, for better or worse, there's a lot of money entering defense internationally, and there's a lot of brilliant minds focused on these problems. So, unfortunately, there's a lot of war that needs to be dealt with, and God willing, war will cease to exist very soon. But in the meantime,
Coming with the Mashiach, I think the Messiah,
yeah.
I think we'll have to do that. Try to make it better,
but in the meantime, it's exciting to see the new defense initiatives and ways to make soldiers safer and reduce the number of soldiers that are needed on the battlefield as we transition to drones and other alternatives.
Yeah, it's an ever moving situation because you have drones and you never had that before. And now, really, that's what you hear is drones here, drone there, drones are attacking. So all this technology is really based.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's exciting. It's really interesting to see fascinating technologies taking advantage of things that maybe weren't even known about in the last 20 years, 30 years. So
A lot of things, it does go into the peacetime because also, I read a book that a lot of things that we have today are innovated because of war necessities. Again, rubber tires. Well, it was hard to get rubber in World War II, making a long story short. So they're more nylon. It's not just pure rubber. So a lot of things are like that, or just even going to the moon. So who cares going to the moon or something like that? But a lot of computers, because they needed different kind of analogs in order to know you're going up in space the wrong time over here.
Right, sure.
So again, and now we have computers because of that. So again, it could be from the defense. A lot of things become better.
Yeah. There's a book that I've learned about. It's called Extreme Ownership. It was written by U.S. Navy SEALs, but the premise is basically that battlefield preparation and leadership extends to leadership in the beyond in any context. So, because of the intensity of defense and battle, it provides a very high-level solution. I would say maybe the most elite solution that you can find, given the pressure and extreme circumstances, which then can be applied to any context. So.
You know, it's interesting you say that because bring in a little Kabbalah here. There's people who have 10 spheros or 10 powers. One of them is Netzach, which is victory. It's one of the lower ones on the totem pole, so to speak, of the 10. But it said it's actually one of the highest because they had, for example, and they bring in an idea from real life. You know, there's certain budget, social welfare, we can't afford it, and we're going to cut down on this and that program. When it comes to budgets, well, we need 10 more bombs. Sorry, it's not in the budget. You know, so therefore you put everything, like you say, in the extreme person. You know, you say you go to a job, fine, you work hard, you go to school, fine, but you're on the battlefield, you're putting everything you have out there to the extreme. So on one hand, it reaches really to the highest levels. And like you say, when it's your life and death, God forbid, but it really is. If Israel loses, it's terrible, terrible. So it's not like, okay, guys say a sports game, so the Yankees lose, so what are you going to do, cry? You'll be back next season, but if Israel loses, it's all over for, God forbid, we shouldn't even say it, but it would be terrible, terrible.
The stakes are high.
Yeah, so it's a good thing. So, I mean, it's a noble profession, that's what I'm saying. It's, the Rebbe, actually, I bring in always the Rebbe, that's, I know more than the science and technology. But I remember I was there after the Yom Kippur War in 770, and some soldiers came afterwards, like Simchas Torah, a few weeks later, and he said, and he was real controversial because, really, especially now you're talking so many years ago, 50 years ago, they weren't so religious. I know we can talk about that also, about how many religious, because people get a bad name, the Orthodox guys don't go to the army. Maybe we could talk about that, but he just said that someone who puts not only, a person gives $1,000 to charity, great, you're holy, very, very good, and you're learning very, very good. You literally put your life on the line to protect other Jewish people, puts you in the highest realm. I remember the Rebbe said that, the Israeli army, understood that, what the Rebbe cared about that. But let's talk about that. Again, you're Orthodox, and, people sometimes give a name, the Orthodox people don't join the army. Well, of course, you're Orthodox and you join the army. Well, do you see a lot of Orthodox people in there?
Well, you see a lot of, I would say, the religious Zionist community, Dati Leumi. They're very well represented in the army. Typically, I think when people discuss the religious Jews not joining, it's specifically the Haredi communities. It's a big challenge. There's a lot of division in Israel. There was a lot of division before October 7th. Unfortunately, it's continued. The division is maybe surrounding slightly different problems, but ultimately I think that there's a deeper disconnect in the Jewish people and the Jewish national soul.
But you were in the army. I mean, how easy was it to be Orthodox? Like say, they got down on you. I mean, again, there's kosher, for example.
Yeah, I would say if it is a priority for you, it absolutely shouldn't affect. Everything should support you to live a Torah kosher life in the army. Now they're even creating units specifically for Haredim. They have a new...
Haredim, just for our audience, maybe we can call it Hasidim or ultra-Orthodox.
Yeah.
So maybe I don't like that phrase, but all right.
Yeah. Well, yeah, for all intents and purposes, ultra-Orthodox. They created new units specifically tailored to meet the needs of all ultra-Orthodox soldiers. Separate male exclusive units, which allow soldiers to join at a later age. So if they spent more time learning in the yeshiva, but decided they want to join the army, at, let's say, 22 or even older, there's an opportunity now to do so for combat and non-combat soldiers. So slowly but surely, for those ultra-Orthodox individuals who want to join the Army in whatever capacity, the Army is creating programs to enable a Torah lifestyle.
Yeah, I just know from, obviously from the inside, I mean, you think that all yeshiva students are sitting learning from morning to night, which a lot of them are, but a lot of people are not that capable. So if you're going to go into business, if you're not going to, into whatever you're other than learning, might as well go into the Army. And again, the rabbis were just concerned that they didn't want to, like I was kind of leading on, how can you be a Orthodox Jew in an army? They didn't want to lose the religiosity, the religion because of the army. But since that's what they gave in, saying, all right, you can have your own unit, and you'll be religious, and still, join the army.
Yeah, I've learned actually that there's even a new law or ability for soldiers to not even be in uniform if they feel that they want to stay in their classic garb, whatever that may look like, black pants and a white shirt, but they want to contribute to the Army initiatives. There are opportunities to do so. So it's really, I think, amazing how the Army has been flexible and open to allowing, just being more creative to help accommodate different types of people. I think it's very important for everyone to serve in some capacity. It's, the Jewish nation is one ultimately, so we shouldn't divide.
Well, like I say that, even going back again, like you saw in the Bible, I mean, there were warriors and they were religious. It wasn't just, the non-religious, let them do the fighting. Never was that way.
Right.
It's a modern day in the last 100 years maybe, but in biblical times, the Jewish people, there's wars all over the place. If you read the Bible or people read the book of Samuel, book of Kings, and there were wars, and these were all religious people. So it's not a sin to go into the army.
Yeah.
But
And maybe it's even a very high level way to express connection to God.
Well, like I say, what the Rebbe said, it's a very noble idea of putting your life on the line, almost literally, and to protect other people.
Right.
It's a very nice thing. All right, so we're having a good time, but we're out of time. So I want to thank Isaac Singer for being on the Jewish View and just illuminating us a little bit about what life in Israel is all about, and why would a nice Jewish boy want to go to Israel and join the army. But it's a very noble cause, and we wish you the best and with good health.
Thank you. Pleasure to be on.